It will take another 30 seconds to 45 seconds. All right, so I think we are live now. Okay, so good afternoon and welcome to this session on entrepreneurship talks presented by Roots Collegium and as part of the LEAF program, the Leadership, Entrepreneurship and Family Business Program. We are here. We were last Thursday discussing on how COVID has affected businesses and entrepreneurs across the segment. And we are back again with a special episode or special session on deep diving in a particular sector, but at the same time, we are looking at learnings from the past because in the past there have been some pandemics, there have been some upsets, the Great Depression. So we are looking at the learnings from the past and also how do we project it in the future. In fact, as I wrote about the introduction here, the very definition of entrepreneurship seems to be changing because earlier it was about identifying a problem, solving that problem in an innovative way, and monetizing that. But today, is that definition any more valid, or has that very definition changed? Because the one thing which came up very strongly when I was interacting with Mr. BVP Raju in the prelude to this particular session was he mentioned an interesting comment, and that was the pattern, the behavioral patterns of people, as much as we would like to agree or think that they are rational patterns, but sometimes or more often than not, it gets irrational. And that's the key to be a successful entrepreneur now as to how close you can get to predicting those patterns and identifying those patterns. So, friends, students, and viewers, welcome once again with this kind of a context. It's a great honor and privilege to introduce Shri BVP Raju, the Managing Director of Kalpana Chemicals Private Limited. I know that oil sector and this is going through tremendous change. We will hear more about it from Mr. Raju, but a little bit about him. A chemical engineer by profession or qualification. He has led management teams and he has created structures and processes to ensure professional working environment, and is also responsible for all the industry standards implementation in his various organizations. But apart from his profile, I personally was taken to him when I spoke to him for 15-20 minutes, and that is what I would like to use as my introduction of him. Is number one, for me, Mr. Raju comes across as a very grounded person who is having a deep understanding of the interconnections in the sector and industry. Second, who is able to apply the learning from the past and try to look at how things can be balanced in the current scenario. And three, he has a voice of his own. He has an opinion. He has a strong flavor which he brings to the mindset of an entrepreneur. So, sir, and Mr. Raju, as you said, you don't want me to call you sir, so I'll call you Mr. Raju. It will take me a little bit time, but thank you once again for agreeing. And I must thank Mr. Padala for bringing both of us together. Thanks, Mr. Padala. And without much ado, I would one welcome and two let the forum open for you, where you can present your thoughts, present your opinions, and share your insights. And let's see how it goes because I would like to keep it as fluid and as informal as possible, sir.
Thank you, Dr. Chandrasekhar. First of all, it's an honor to be addressing college students. Secondly, I know college students don't have attention spans of great magnitude because, trust me, I also went to college, so I look too old to have ever been in college. The most striking thing about during this whole lockdown period that I've read, I would like to share as a first thought.
Sure.
There's a French philosopher, André Comte, and he said, I have two things to share with the world. One, a good news, and then a bad news. And like always, he said, let me share the bad news first. The bad news is that we're all going to die. And the good news is that very few of us will die because of COVID-19. So, though the pandemic is spread across the globe, the mortality rate, mercifully, is quite low compared to the size of the population, not compared to those who are tested positive. And that difference between who is infected and who has not been infected, and therefore what is that ratio, is still under debate and has caused this extreme reaction across the globe. The world has never witnessed in its history this kind of a shock. There has been the Spanish flu shock, but that was a health shock. Then came the Great Depression. That was an economic shock caused by the stock market. It had nothing to do with health. Then came SARS, but it was limited in geography. Then the H1N1. Before that, the dot-com bubble. So they were either economic shocks or financial shocks. The system, for the first time in the history of mankind, at least in modern history, for the first time, the entire economic system or the global order as we have defined it has witnessed a multiple shock. There's a health shock and an economic shock packaged into one. So this shock that the world economy has undergone is not going to be a very simple issue to deal with. Though I would wish that it was just a pause button, but this is like...
But it was limited in geography.
Geography. Yeah.
Yeah, go ahead, sir.
This is like somebody stopping a fast-moving car in an instant.
Yeah.
So it's there are bound to be accidents. There is bound to be shock to the passengers. There is bound to be difference in the way the passengers behave. And that is where we are. Dr. Chandrasekhar, when he defined entrepreneurship, he said, there is a problem, you need to solve it, and you need to come up with a creative solution to the existing problem and then monetize the problem. That definition of entrepreneurship has not changed. It is still the identification of a problem. It is still coming up with a creative solution, and it is still about monetizing, because that's all an entrepreneur can do. You cannot address the larger issues in the world, nor change the way the world economy will function. So, however, there is one key characteristic of an entrepreneur, and that is intuition. A lot of people are misled when they are young to consider intuition as something God-given. It might be. When you read the stories of great men who are great entrepreneurs, you could lead yourself into thinking that it is divine inspiration, and it may very well be. But an intuition is basically what? You process information from various sources, and then you take a big gap. So while you're walking, or while you're in your bathroom, on the throne, while taking a shower, all this processed information comes to you in an intuitive thought, and a solution appears to you. So therefore, that is the attempt that we're making today. We're trying to give you various data sources so that you process that information, you go and re-verify some of the information, and then we assume that it will trigger thoughts in you, which will then make you come up with your big intuitive idea. So we'll take a step back and see what exactly is happening in this world. So let us explore past shocks, as Mr. Dr. Chandrasekhar said. There is the Great Depression, and there have been many recessions across the globe. But there are a few businesses that have always been consistently doing well. One, without any doubt, is that of the accountants. Irrespective of what happens, people need accountants. People need accountants for creative accounting. People need financial consultants for restructuring of businesses, for raising money, for making cost-cutting exercises within their organizations. So the fraternity of accountants or financial professionals will always survive. Then there is the healthcare providers. As this is a major economic shock and a health shock, the healthcare system will come under immense scrutiny and will also attract great amount of investment, both public and private. So the healthcare providing segment or solutions which enhance the efficiency of the healthcare professional will definitely perform well in periods of health and economic crises and recessions. The other amazing segment would be repairs and maintenance. Repairs and maintenance, primarily because the economic criteria of the behavior of trying to buy a new thing instead of repairing an old and continuing usage will be flipped. You wouldn't buy a new car, but you'll maintain your old car. You'll not switch a refrigerator, but you'll maintain it. You'll not want to upgrade your laptop, but you want it to be maintained. You want an upgrade RAM to go in, things like that. So repairs and maintenance is one sector that is recession proof and actually does well in a recession. Home improvements. Home improvements are another sector which have been traditionally doing very well. Home improvements will also do well. I'll come back to home improvements when we discuss about work from home. But repairs, again, home improvement is nothing but a repair. A leaking pipe, a not so utilized room getting utilized as an office space, whatever you want to consider as a home improvement.
So renovation or remodification.
Rejigging of the existing spaces. The other absolutely fantastic business during recessions is discount stores. Because everybody is looking for a discount. So the cheaper and cheaper stores or the lower to middle class formats of products or product ranges will start doing better than expected. This is the past learning from, besides a lot of other things which are now obsolete. In the Great Depression, the movies started doing well because the movies started repackaging themselves and selling 2 tickets at the price of 1. So you could get to see 2 feature films at the price of 1. If you are a woman, people would give you an additional food coupon, which you could encash. So the movie business thrived, but this is not economic shocks. This is also a health shock. So those are the learnings from the Great Depression and various other recessions. So these are considered recession-proof industries: accounting, repairs and maintenance, healthcare, education, and home improvements, and surprisingly, real estate broking.
Oh, okay.
Because there are people who are losing homes, selling homes, and then moving into new homes, smaller homes, or rental homes. So there is a lot, when there is a depression, there's a lot of strife in maintaining a large house or paying off its EMIs.
Yeah.
So as long as the depression lasts, the real estate agent is also considered a recession-proof business. But we don't know as of today what is going to happen. That is as far as the past is concerned. Now what is being noticed is an acceleration of trends. For example, I was discussing with Dr. Chandrasekhar, gym business is supposed to be going down. Has gone down because gyms are closed. However, online gyms, those gyms which move their businesses online, like CultFit and various other Healthify Me, and those kind of apps which make you work out or do exercise with an online trainer, they have grown by 70 to 80% in the last 30 to 40 days. So this is a trend and it will get accelerated. If you're asking me whether weight training will come back, weight training might come back, and then the actual gyms might be required. However, that will take a while before you're comfortable in going into a public space
Public spaces, yeah.
where everybody is sweating and using their sweaty palms to hold something and you are holding it back. So that is a problem area. So now, for the sake of our discussion, let us come into defining businesses as impaired, which means that they are completely impaired. That they impaired meaning they might not close, but they are impaired. Their growth rates are stunted forever. And then there are businesses which are neutral, and then there are businesses that will be positive. I just made a list of them.
Yeah.
The impaired businesses would be corporate travel, all travel related businesses. They are impaired, A, because corporate travel would be cut because it's a huge cost. And as a part of cost cutting exercise, it will go down. If you've noticed, as all of us have seen television in the last 30 to 40 days, television advertising is down.
Absolutely, yeah.
Luxury product advertising will be out of the window. It will be impaired for a while. When I say impaired, I don't mean it will close, but it will be stunted. Growth rates would be stunted. Shared rides. Who would want to share a ride now with an unknown person? Shared accommodations. Would you want to share your accommodation? Real estate malls. The mall business is under tremendous pressure. Theaters. The film business, the theatrical releases have obviously stopped, and therefore the shootings also have stopped across the globe. For those who are interested in the film business, films have always had two separate and distinct lobbies. One is the production houses, the studios, and the other equally strong lobby, the theater owners. To give you an example, Disney had a film called Troll War, and they released Troll War 2, I think, in this COVID period. So their model of release was bypass the theaters because the theaters are anyway closed, go on a pay-per-view platform, use and milk the pay-per-view platform for 48 hours, and then move it onto their OTT platform, which is Disney Plus. The figures are yet to come out, but if that model is successful, then the film producers across the globe have a greater leverage on the theater lobby.
Yeah.
And the kind of films that will be made might also change.
So just to interrupt, sir, when you say paper model, what does it?
Pay-per-view model.
Yeah.
Google Pay, you just go on to Google platform or an Apple iTunes and you pay $12, and then the film is there for you for 24 hours or 48 hours to view whenever you want.
So it's an on demand.
On demand, video on demand.
Video on demand. All right. So just for the benefit of all. Yeah.
What will be gaining is very obvious to us all. Grocery and food.
Essentials.
The essentials.
Yeah.
E-commerce. Contactless delivery based e-commerce models. Digital advertising, therefore.
Yeah.
As more and more people consume digital advertising, consume goods digitally, the digital advertising too would grow up. Collaboration tools, work collaboration tools. Right now, the SME segment hardly uses any work collaboration tools. A, they are overpriced, or B, that kind of technology was not required. But the circumstances have pushed people, and therefore collaboration tools. How do you collaborate on your work across the globe? Telemedicine. Telemedicine was in its very nascent stage, and as I said, any business that was in its nascent stage but was showing an upward trend will show an accelerated trend as it moves through its business cycle. The business cycle will start getting compressed and they'll show an accelerated consumption. Till now, telemedicine was resisted by the forces, the governments, by the doctors themselves, by established hospitals. But now telemedicine is the way to go. Wellness would be another luxury commodity consumed by the people with affordable incomes or with disposable incomes. Because they want to be well without actually being, to boost their immunity. If you see most of the ads, most of the WhatsApp forwards, most of everything that you're receiving is about immunity boosting.
Yes.
I don't know how well it works, but that's the mood of the customer. Then cloud-based entertainment platforms, which is OTT, which we have covered. Online education. I have an interesting take on online education. The whole business will switch. Online education will switch over a period of time to what is technically called the flipped classroom model. A flipped classroom is basically where there is no lecturer giving you a long lecture on the basics of the subject. You read the basics of the subject online, and when you come to the classroom, you have a problem.
Yeah. You have a discussion.
You have a discussion, and if you have a specific problem in understanding a specific concept and feel the need of a mentor to walk you through the concept with an example, that is what will happen in a classroom. Because as kids have realized, and as universities will also realize, over a period of time, in the next 6 months or 4 months or whatever period this COVID-19 lasts, the education will be dispensed online. And as educators start using more and more of the online platform, they would realize that half of their job can actually be done without their interference. So right now it's about live classes. That means in future it will move towards online content, which is not live, which you can consume at your pace. And then when there is a class, you come back, each one has learned at its own pace, at his or her own pace, and is more or less on the same page.
Yeah, self-paced learning, and you
Self-paced
come
learning
together.
with a flipped classroom model.
Yeah.
So that gives another opportunity, a business opportunity as an old aging businessman, that you can look at generating online content.
Yeah.
So the online content generation system will improve.
Yes.
Especially with regard to education. Because there is a lot that great teachers do, but there's a lot that bad teachers do too.
Absolutely. Yeah.
So this is a great opportunity for everybody to be brought onto the same platform. So which means that somebody attending Roots can actually have a professor from ISB who's generated content for you to learn, and the prof at Roots can be just a moderator of the class, a mentor. He might not be great at expressing, but he'll be great at mentoring.
Facilitating and mentoring. Yeah.
At mentoring. So the way the online education works, I'm not saying there won't be universities, there won't be social interactions, because education is recession proof. Everybody wants to educate themselves, upskill themselves. So they will. And there is something in a university which can't be found online.
Yes.
So the very social interaction with peers is something desirable. But at the end of the day, are we using our time productively by sitting in a class? Is also brought into question. I don't know if this is the right forum to say it, but I read a very interesting piece by a Harvard professor who just added up all the tuition fee paid by economics students who attend his class, divided it by the 6 subjects they take for that semester, and said, is my 1 minute really worth 10,000 US dollars? Because I don't get paid that. So higher education was already in trouble across the United States, which is considered the gold standard for higher education. The cost of higher education was in trouble, not higher education. So there will come a stage where the costs will be analyzed. If I have to sit online and not go to class, and therefore not enjoy the campus of Harvard, why am I paying Harvard? Then the Harvard professor is conducting a parallel class. So these kind of questions will come, and entrepreneurs have an opportunity. Online learning is going through the roof, like Upgrad and Udemy and all the MOOCs. Harvard is offering some 60 courses free online.
Yes.
And so it's already happening and it's getting accelerated. The other thing that I wanted to talk to you about was the impact of working from home on the real estate sector.
Commercial real estate.
Conventional wisdom and pessimists would focus on the fall of the commercial sector, which will happen. Because as, for example, TCS talking about 25-25,
yes,
which means 25% will work in the office by 2025, which means 60 to 70% of their current real estate would be infructuous, or assuming that TCS has a 60 to 70% growth rate over the next 4 years, then that means there won't be any expansion of commercial space. Whichever way you take it, it's bad news for commercial space. Yeah. But look at it from the perspective of work from home. Everybody, Javed Akhtar once very famously said, "Har ek dil mein ek khwahish baki hai, har ek ghar mein ek kamra kam hai." So once you start working from home, that is when you will find that there is room for one more room in your house.
Oh, there's more space.
You need one more room in your house,
yes,
where you can actually work from home. Today we are making do with it. So there is a possibility, as more and more people who can work from home start working from home, there is a possibility that people who can afford will move into larger housing, or would want to add a room to their independent houses if possible, which is functioning purely as an office.
Yeah.
So that is one business that might show an uptick, residential real estate, after going through its period of trouble. There will be a period of trouble because people's salaries and incomes would reduce. There is a lot of talk on television regarding migrant labor, and rightly so, because if a kid in Italy can be brought back, why can't a kid who works in a factory or in a construction site in Hyderabad, is, for his parent, it's the same kid. So why not? But and about loss of employment and all these things. But counterintuitively, what will happen is, in manufacturing sector, there will be more automation. Because suddenly every SME has realized that they are so people dependent that any pandemic, any health crisis will cause a complete breakdown of the manufacturing facility.
Entire thing, yeah.
So most SMEs which can afford and which will survive this pandemic will definitely go through a period of automation to whatever extent they can. They might not be able to create completely automated factories because of limitation of capital and market size, but at the end of the day, they can automate. For example, loading of trucks. Most SMEs load trucks physically. physical loading of trucks will go out of the window. There will be a lot of conveyors. There are
Automated.
reasons. So a lot of things will happen. Unemployment will rise among the unskilled, because when you automate, the unskilled goes out of work. And if you don't automate, the unskilled might not actually come back from his village. So you might not have anybody to run your business. So these are not moral or ethical choices, but these are practical choices that every entrepreneur and every individual has to make in his life. So that was one point that I wanted to tell you. And I just wanted to give you a couple of examples so that you don't feel that there is no future in this world.
Yeah, in fact, I was about to interrupt you there before you go to the examples part. You covered a lot of areas in this last 15 minutes. You spoke about how the lessons are to be taken from the previous pandemics and previous upsets. And also, you spoke about the impaired sectors, the kind of sectors who will be affected, if not for a longer time, at least for a shorter time. And also, you brought in the kind of restructuring or revamping of the business models. Like you quoted the example of education, how offline is going to become more and more online, and under online it's going to be flipped, and it's going to be new content getting into the online spaces and getting consumed. Now, in all this, the one thing which I see, which is kind of a common chord, is upskilling, is kind of adapting to this changing scenario. So, could you spend a little time on giving your inputs on, especially as an entrepreneur, as an SME person yourself? And I know for a fact that you are as affected, if not more, as some of the people who are. So, if you can tell us or let us into your mind, how is that thought going on, and how are you approaching your day?
Firstly, I'm in a segment that is completely smashed,
Yeah.
and that is the oil segment, the crude oil segment. We supply and manufacture specialty chemicals which are used in exploration of oil fields. So there is a crude oil glut, which is not unknown. The crude oil industry was already going through a lot of trouble because of fall in consumption. The trend, as I said, every trend will get accelerated. So a falling trend also in any business that you have seen before COVID-19 only gets accelerated after COVID-19. It won't reverse. Very few businesses will reverse. So the oil glut is obviously will affect all the services industry around it and the future of the prospecting industry. So we don't see a turnaround as such for the next 6 to 9 months.
Oh, okay.
Because most of the oil that is now in tankers and in offshore tankers and onshore tankers is just lying there, including with the government of India. There is hardly any consumption. Consumption has just fallen off the cliff. So once consumption kicks in, assuming COVID-19 doesn't last till the end of the year, once the consumption kicks in and the world doesn't see a second wave, once I'm assuming by July, most of the world would be opened up again. And so if there is consumption kicking in, these stocks will first have to deplete, and then the new prospecting of oil and new fields or new exploration will begin. The world cannot do without oil. The world cannot do without crude oil. Most of the assumption around crude oil is that it is made for petrol and diesel or aviation fuel. Those might be the biggest consumers, but you won't have a single plastic in this world if there's no crude oil. It's a petrochemical. So none of your laptops will work or can be manufactured. None of your PPE equipment can be manufactured. Nothing will happen without petrochemicals. So I'm not worried that crude oil will just disappear from this world. There will be a heavy contraction. So our business plan, hopefully it works, is to collect whatever is due to us, not to pay what is due from me or to defer it, and sustain our cash for survival over a period of 6 months while waiting out the storm. There are certain businesses that can't be pivoted. If you're stuck with such a business, there is no other plan. But my personal plans, I have started discussing with a few people, and we might pivot the whole business or start a new business. But then that is a different plan. But as far as the oil sector is concerned, that is the story. Oil is also another very interesting subject. I don't know if there are any students of economics here, but the dollar was always valued against the gold. The promise of the dollar was that if you bring me a dollar, I'll give you an equivalent value of gold. And that agreement was called the Bretton Woods Agreement.
Yes.
The Bretton Woods Agreement was thrown out of the window once United States went into a recession in the late 60s, early 70s. So the dollar started slipping. But in the meantime, Henry Kissinger and Nixon sewed up a deal with Saudi Arabia and the Middle East, saying that if you ensure that all of petrol or crude is sold through the dollar, and the dollar is the only currency, and if you park your money that you've earned through the dollar, the United States will protect you, not the country, protect you, as in the regime, as in the family of the South, from any other issues, and take care of your geopolitical security problems. So that is the advent of the petrodollar. And therefore, dollar became the default currency. Everybody needed to buy crude. So all countries parked their money on crude, parked their money in dollars so that the crude prices could be kept in control, the imported crude. But now, when the crude collapses, what is the strength of the petrodollar? Logically, if you see past crises, you would notice that the US dollar has not diminished to a great extent with gold, to gold. It's kept pace. For the first time, I'm noticing, I don't know if I'm not an analyst, so I can't plot a trend graph and show you, but I have noticed in the last 30 to 40 days that the dollar is slipping vis-a-vis the gold, and radically so. That means the dollar is losing respect as an acceptable currency of trade. And that itself is a globe-destroying moment. If that happens, then it will be a very pivotal moment in the way the world trade is conducted. And China will do its best to ensure that it happens. America will do it, and its allies will do its best to prevent that from happening. So these are very uncertain times for both the. So therefore, it is in America's interest too to maintain the preeminence of the petrodollar.
Yeah.
So I'm banking on all these global factors working in my favor. But beyond that, I don't have a great business plan as such for the oil sector. Nobody has, because already bankruptcies are being filed.
Yeah, I mean, see, just to pause a bit, of course, my respect for you to understand the situation and also to accept it, because understanding is one part of it, but accepting it and trying to make plans in that scenario itself takes a great deal of character. So my respect for you on that. But as you rightly said, and for all of them who are watching us, the students especially, since this is a part of the class, I would like to make a point here. And the point here is, see, you are having a business which is up and running till maybe a few weeks or few months ago, and it was all as per your plan. But be very, very sure that that is only plan A. Anytime such a thing can happen, which is beyond your control, and all your plans can go out of the window, and you need to look at a plan B. Because what I see in the class also when I deal with entrepreneurs, they're so obsessed with having a solution on their hand to a problem that they do not, or rather stop foreseeing future problems, stop anticipating effect on their business from unknown territory. And that can be really, really destructing, because you are so tunnel visioned with your one area and you're doing good, no doubt about it. But then if something like this derails you, you should be in a position to kind of take a back step, as you said and rightly did, and then look at evaluating your options on hand. If we don't do that, then I don't think you are an entrepreneur in that sense of the word, because you need to keep your antennas up and open.
No, entrepreneurship is definitely not a bed of roses. You don't need COVID-19 to get into a state of shock.
Yeah.
Mine doesn't qualify as a startup actually, because it's a traditional business,
Yes, yes.
well established, positive, in the not in the red, not greatly leveraged with banks. So I'm in a business that reached comfort level.
Yeah.
So that other than that, when you start an entrepreneurial venture, there's obviously going to be a lot of human factors involved. Typically, people don't fail on the idea; they fail on the execution. Ideas are fantastic. You don't need a great idea. Please tell me, what is a great idea about collecting food from a restaurant and delivering it at your house? There's no great idea. It's been done in Delhi and Bombay for donkey's years.
Yes.
Uh,
The Dabbawalas.
yeah, the Dabbawalas is one extreme example. I'm saying in Delhi, it was very commonplace to go to the local dhaba or to the local restaurant in your colony and or call him and say, I need dal makhni and two tandoori rotis, and he would deliver.
Yeah.
So it wasn't unusual. There's nothing brilliant about that idea. What
Yeah,
is
I mean,
brilliant is the execution.
I know. I remember one incident. I'm sure in your college days as well, in BITS, you will also remember this. I came from IIM Lucknow. So we had this kind of adjustments or arrangements with the outside the campus canteen guy or the catering guy, who had just one chotu where you just call him or send a message and that guy comes running with whatever you want hot on your plate.
Unfortunately, Dr. Chandrasekhar, you're very young. I didn't belong to the mobile phone generation when I was in college. So even Chotu, we had to yell Chotu.
That's true. Sir, one couple of questions which have come, I think you can include that in your thing, is when one is the need and the demand of upskilling, because a lot of trends are changing. Students are asking, viewers are asking, how can we kind of upskill ourselves? Another thing to that is, please tell what kind of creative based pursuits we can do apart from online in this kind of an environment. Second thing is, what kind of jobs and placements will happen going forward? Because I'm sure these students are really worried. We are in second year, third year graduation, undergraduation. How they should be preparing for this post-COVID world? Any insights on that, sir?
The post-COVID world will not be as bad as you assume it will be. First thing.
Oh, okay. That's a refresher.
I mean, because most of you are still in college, it will take you a year at least to finish college and move in. And hopefully, by the end of the year, things will be fantastic. And you might not even know. But considering that the economic climate is bad, you will have to map out various sectors. For example, you connect the dots. If you are somebody who's creative, who can create animated content, who can create content, who can speak well, who's in any kind of creative aspirational business, online content is going to go through the roof. The consumption of online content. Let me give you a small example. We normally see, I'm 50, so now I've become mature. We normally assume that there is some great idea behind a great business. There is from great businesses. There are a few path-breaking ideas in this world, but a majority of the businesses are just businesses. Let me give you the example of Choo Choo TV. Please go onto your YouTube, type Choo Choo TV. CHU TV. It's a Chennai-based company. Their YouTube revenues, as reported in 2018, are 37 crores just from YouTube. They are the world's most preferred partner of YouTube in Asia.
Wow.
What do? Ba, black sheep, have you any wool? Yes, sir, 3 bags full. That is animated. That's all they do. And they put the content there. A for apple, B for ball, B, C for cat. That is the limit of their video. They have kept growing. Obviously, they must have moved up to first standard or something. So you might find a little more complication in 1 plus 2 equal to 3
Okay.
and 3 minus 1. But essentially, they're making videos for kindergarten. It's not rocket science. So any educational content that you would like to make, any entertaining content that you would like to make, so that is for the creative people. But then there are people like me who are not so creative. So for them, there is a lot of work. For example, there's a company, a BPO that I was speaking to in Hyderabad. They are planning to up their intake by around 1,000 or 1,200. They are today at 1,700. Post the world opening up, because they provide their services to a majority of the home appliance market. So the home appliance manufacturers are mapping that home appliance sales will go up. So they would need more BPO support. So there are BPO jobs, and this excessive love for living in a city also drives up your cost of living.
Absolutely, yeah.
So there will come a time very soon where you could be sitting in Karimnagar, if that's your hometown, and you could be working in this particular company of my friend in Mindspace, because they have started recruiting people from as far as Vijayawada, and all they are onboarding them through learning management systems online. And they expect them to visit them for a week, probably in 3 months, or 2 days in 3 months. And that's about it. You do your work from home. They feel that they've achieved almost 90-95% efficiency metric vis-a-vis what they were 30 days ago in work from home. So there will be enough opportunities. As far as the skills that you require to acquire those opportunities, the first and primary skill for which you don't need to go to any college is focus. You need to be focused and sincere, because work from home exposes people who don't work.
Absolutely. And efficiency levels.
And your personal efficiency level. Yeah, that's what I meant. You will get exposed, because you will have to draft it. There is nobody whom you can go take out for a chai and a cigarette and learn something and come back and type it.
Mm.
So work from home exposes all of us. And so therefore you need the focus to finish work on time. Secondly, you will need to constantly work at upskilling. There is no magical upskilling that you can do immediately, but choosing a field and constantly upskilling your skills in that particular field is going to be of tremendous value forever, COVID or no COVID, because skills are changing very rapidly. Even before this particular event happened, there's a book, I don't know how many of you have read the author, Yuval Noah Harari, and Harari has predicted that over the next 10 or 12 years, there will be a useless generation, a jobless generation. because there are not enough jobs with digitization, and auto robotics, telemedicine, blah, blah, blah. So there will be empathy jobs in his projection. I don't know how far, I mean, he's not an astrologer, he's a historian, but he's just stretching his thought
Yeah.
into the future. So what, either the society has to take care of all its people or provide them a job. So I don't think it's a stage that somebody should get depressed. Just imagine if there was no IT sector, what would have happened to all the IT employees in India?
Yeah.
So you cannot imagine things like that. Push your fears to the extreme. There will emerge a sector which will employ all of you. But you have to be ready to recognize that opportunity and work hard at upskilling for that sector.
Yeah, well, that's an interesting thing because the couple of things which I saw as you were talking about what is in store in the future, one, as if it is not going to be that bad, it is not going to be that cruel on all of us. And of course, opportunities will come, and as the adage goes, necessity is the mother of all invention. So when you are confined to a particular space, you will start refining from there and trying to emerge out relevant and useful for people. The one thing which I also understood is that in that sense, what you just mentioned a while ago, in that sense, this post-COVID world is going to be a welcome change for all of us. Let me kind of elaborate a little. Now, for example, now urbanization was a biggest challenge which countries were facing, not just India, cities in India, but even countries were facing urbanization where everybody would want to migrate to established cities for comforts and for opportunities. So maybe with this, the talent is triumphing where no matter where you are, no matter where you belong, but if you have something of value to offer, people would like to take it and they will like to pay or kind of reward you amply. So that's one thing which I really kind of get from your perspective. The other thing which I also look at it is a lot of these issues, at the cost of sounding philosophical, but a lot of these issues like pollution, traffic, the kind of regular run from the grind kind of a thing, all these things will now take a back step. And I think the positive side of it is, I keep asking this in different panels and I tell that here, just imagine lockdown without technology. I mean, if you had no internet, if you had no way to connect with people and you're cut off for 40 days, how would it be? Today, in that context, some of the things which we normally do, apart from driving out or buying out or shopping and eating out, none of the other things are affected thanks to connectivity which we have in one sense or the other. So I think for all the students or all the viewers, there is nothing to panic. There is nothing to worry so much that, oh, we are stuck here and when we come out, what is going to happen? So that's my perspective, sir.
No, I agree with you. The post-COVID world, I don't know if it's going to be brilliant or otherwise, because we have to construct it.
Yes.
And we might revert back to old bad habits because we, as I told you on the
Old habits die hard.
that we are predictably irrational. I would recommend for most of the students, because you're students of management, to start reading behavioral economics.
Yes.
It's extremely interesting. I'm an engineer. I have nothing. I hate economics. So it's not the dry economics. Behavioral economics is where do you place a Lay's chip packet in
on the shelf.
aisle,
Yeah.
so that it gets your maximum attention. Or an example, or a further example of having packaging. If you notice, Ratnadeep's packaging would be way inferior to Kohinoor Rice's packaging. That is not because Ratnadeep cannot afford Kohinoor Rice packaging, but I'm told by behavioral economists in their book, it is to turn you off and to make you buy Kohinoor. And to not turn away customers who are looking for a bargain buy and don't care for the visual aesthetics of the packaging. Ratnadeep is kept there, their own brand. So this is nudging people towards a particular behavior because human beings are irrational but predictably so. So one of the authors I would recommend for your lockdown reading is Dan Ariely. You can actually see him on YouTube, but he's not an edifying sight because he's burnt. But he's a prof and brilliant mind. Absolutely easy read. Predictably Irrational is one of his books. And The Honest Truth About Dishonesty is another book. So I'm saying that you will have to acquire multi-pronged skills as an entrepreneur now, because you're entering into a world that is going to be constructed. So therefore, you need to be a good student of human behavior too, to construct a business, to construct a communication which will influence my behavior into making a buy decision.
Absolutely. So there's a question which has come up from the student here, Tulsi Shah. She says that due to this pandemic, the internet in many smaller towns isn't available or not so comfortable or good. So to continue these online businesses, e-commerce and learning and other things, people are creating offline versions of it. Like, you call via, they say that example, via call can focus on the main perspective is the positive idea of the entrepreneur. So it's like creating offline businesses for online, like something like recording content and putting it there so that whenever they have access to it, they kind of act. So she wants to ask you that, is that also an emerging sector for an entrepreneur to weigh the option of venturing into it?
Yeah, there are people who have already ventured into providing offline services for an online company as an extension.
Okay.
For example, I forget the name of the business, but it's an e-commerce company which is tied up with some Kirana stores. And so you go to the company, you go to the Kirana stores and order not just what he has, but what he doesn't have. And he gets delivery and then you pick it up. Okay. Now, Reliance Jio is starting something very similar to your idea.
The neighborhood Kiranas, yes.
Yeah. So they're saying there's a WhatsApp number. When you're in contact with good internet, send a WhatsApp. We'll send you a list of stores in your neighborhood. You order the food or the grocery would be packed. So you go and collect contactless delivery. So a mix of online and offline always works. There's a company which has got close to, I think, 100 crore top line now. It's a 1-year-old company. Some ex-IIT guys. They set up a company which basically used Kirana guys, dhobis, the istriwalas, and some big pawn shops to set up a delivery network for Amazon and Flipkart. So they would take delivery from Amazon and Flipkart, deliver it to these agents who anyway know every apartment complex. Every apartment owner in a particular complex and the intricacies of the street that they are in, and they'll deliver as the last mile boys. Therefore, increasing the efficiency or costs of delivery. So that company was funded by a private equity company called Kalari Capital, and the top line is 100 crores. So
wow,
they're doing tremendous business. So there are models that have been explored, but I'm sure if you come up with a completely new kind of usage for an offline extension of an online model, it'll definitely work if there's utility.
True. In fact, I would like to tell this to all the students because we keep discussing different business ideas, and I'm sure each one of you have your own ideas in the class. We keep discussing and deliberating about all of that. Before you consider anything new, thinking that, okay, whatever in the past doesn't hold good, this is COVID, we are all affected, and we need to look and get ready for the new world. I would strongly urge all of you that relook at your idea in the post-COVID world context. You never know, making an online business go offline is something which is a kind of a tweak to the existing idea, but it is a new idea for the new world. So look at it in that perspective, that the idea which you're holding on your hand, can you kind of tweak it a little and then make it relevant for the new one? Because as sir,
Why can't the idea be flipped? Whoever asked that question,
yeah, Tulsi.
Tulsi, you can flip your idea. How about giving access to online marketplaces to people with no online access, but with a product?
So I think Tulsi, if you are listening, I'm sure you are. So this is another way or food for thought for you to think that how can you provide access to people who have not got that great access? So that, you know,
great product. They have a great product. They make
yes,
the best pickle in the village, but they don't have access to the online.
yeah,
So how does that pickle reach across the country?
yeah, kind of an aggregator system where you bring in this kind of people who have a great product, but you become a marketplace and you reach out to them.
Or you participate in marketplaces and reach it and
Yes,
provide them the access. So
absolutely.
any model will work.
Absolutely. So yeah, so that is one. So moving forward, a couple of examples which you wanted to cover. I kind of interrupted you in
No,
between.
it's fine. You covered it in the questions.
Okay.
I just wanted to tell all the students that this phrase soap opera started in the Great Depression. Procter & Gamble, when all people were pulling out of advertising, Procter & Gamble came up with this beautiful idea that we'll tell stories on radio and we'll sponsor it. Our product, the soap and the detergent, will be the main sponsors for the first radio story program, like a radio serial.
Okay.
It was in the time of the television, so it was radio serial.
Interesting. Yeah.
And because the biggest sponsor, the only sponsor for that particular show was a soap, so it was called the soap opera. And Procter & Gamble lives to tell that tale till today. So
Yes.
that means that any business, life is a soap opera, but any business has the potential to survive if they can pivot on their business model, pivot on their products, and emerge into a completely new company.
Interesting perspective. In fact, the word soap opera, even to this day, is used at different platforms, and you know, we did not know, or hardly few people know, the origin of that particular thing. Thank you for sharing that and kind of bringing it to our knowledge, because these are things which we normally use in our day-to-day dealings, but you don't know where it came from or how it originated. Yeah. So, sir, my last part of this conversation, where I want to discuss about the government in terms of, because they are an integral part of our lives, even though if they don't consider us to be an integral part. But the point is, how and what should governments do? Because this is something which has gone into a frenzy in terms of the whole world is kind of spinning out of it and trying to make different amends to things. Some are band-aid solutions, some are well thought of processes. So across sectors, and we cannot as entrepreneurs or industry people, we cannot expect them to bail out every industry sector after sector. That's not going to happen. So what are the broader things which they should do, or things should happen, so that we can all focus around that? You know, in your view, it's personal.
Firstly, one of the things that I want to tell the entrepreneurs about government is the past advice from seniors is stay away from government if you're starting a business. But the next 3 to 4 years, stay stuck to the government. Yeah. If you have a business idea that works with government, get into it. Because governments will be the biggest spenders of money.
Yes.
The government has no choice but to revive the economy. Public health will be one of the greatest investments that India will start making. Public health does not mean hospitals. Public health means sanitation, the whole ecosystem. Moving away from excessive urbanization, everything falls under its larger purview. So public health would be an interesting business piece to look at. and government spending. To answer your specific question about what governments can do, I think very little. Because this is not a, I didn't touch that subject because I didn't want to push everyone into a depression. This is not something that a government is trained to handle. Economy is a very complicated beast, and nobody can claim to be able to control it, or to be able to regulate it, or to be able to initiate an action which can actually do something to the whole economy. For example, what can the government do? You say, other than bailing out companies, they have to bail out companies. They have to bail out airlines. They have no choice. In the United States, people will have to bail out the oil companies because the oil companies have borrowed 600 to 800 billion dollars from the banking system. So if you don't bail them out, that 800 billion has disappeared.
It's gone, yeah.
So the larger ones will get bailouts. That will repeat in India, irrespective of how much lip service SME is given. The small to medium or the medium small enterprise business is not going to be the main beneficiary of a government largesse. Government's intent, I'm not questioning the government's intent, but the whole apparatus is not geared towards it. So the whole apparatus is geared towards protecting and creating a safety net for the economy. And that safety net can come only out of large enterprises, which do a lot of GDP. One of the large enterprises being agriculture, so which they have supported or they intend to support. The other large core sectors will find support, like steel, by ramping up roads and construction, government construction projects, cement, steel, all those sectors, the core sectors. And aviation will collapse. So therefore, aviation would need a lot of help. And we can't say that the world can do without aviation because it's a big employer.
Yes.
Hotels and tourism is another big employer. And that would collapse for a while. So the government is constrained. So though as an SME, I would say it's the easiest to revive the SME sector. We are the least hungry of all. If the government were to say that, like in Germany, the government said, don't sack anyone. I'll pay 75% of the wage. And this is the wage that we expect you to pay. And I'll bear 75% of that for the next 3 to 4 months. And in case you go default and your business goes bust, then we'll write it off.
Okay, so
as
that's
an
like
investment gone mad.
Yeah.
Because anyway, you're paying only the wage.
Yeah.
So it's like a support given to a citizen. You're not giving it to me. So that kind of support structure, I don't know if India can afford. My question is, India was already slipping. So therefore, whether the government has the financial leverage to take care of the poor and the economy and the industry and something else, I have my own doubts. Though our chief minister thinks helicopter money will help. I don't know.
Well, yeah, that's true. I don't think our nation is in that situation where we can kind of propel every sector at the same time along with the common man on the ground. I don't think so. So that is one thing. But yeah, so sum up, we've come to 1 hour, 10 minutes of this particular conversation. So I just want to kind of capsulate it for the students and the viewers. So we started off by talking about the industry. We started out by picking which are the industries or sectors who are impaired, who are neutral, and who are kind of going to grow in the future. And then we moved about certain specific learnings, certain specific pointers, like a case in point was education, both school and higher education or the primary and the higher education, where flipped classrooms can be the norm of the day, or rather will be the norm of the day. And that kind of spins off another industry, which is online content generation, creating more and more content online. So we worked on that. Then we came up to another place where we looked at how upskilling one is an important necessity, and that's the need of the hour. Of course, there is no need to keep pessimism in our place, where we want to look at, okay, what's going to happen post COVID, students or people who are here, we may not get placed. No, there are different industries which will shape up, and there will be enough opportunities for all of us. However, if you're looking at an entrepreneurial kind of journey forward, keep your antennas open. Look at tweaking the ideas you have on hand and how you can find yourself relevant to the space and also serve the larger place. And the important point which came up was, do not be averse to working with government, at least for the next 3 to 5 years, because they are going to be the biggest spenders. They are going to be the people with a deep pocket. If you can try to latch on to that opportunity and try to serve with quality, with commitment, and also at the same time solve an issue on hand, which is the larger concern, I think you don't have any reason to worry. You can definitely be there. And especially the point which I am taking home personally is, there are a lot of learnings from the past. So this is not a one-off situation. Of course, in our life and time, this is the biggest game changer. But if you look behind, maybe 30 years, 50 years, 100 years, there are a lot of learnings which we can use and adapt to the future, provided you know the present. So you understand what is the current scenario. You have technology on your hand. You have connectivity, which is a big boon. You have different models which can come out, not just that the banks need to lend you money or your family needs to support you. Today you have crowdsourcing, you have venture funding, you have different other things for the entrepreneurs. Plus at the same time, there is a lot of things which you can do in the current scenario, because the world has changed and it will change. So keep all these things in mind and then try to go forward. So as part of the class, I would like to thank all of you for kind of spending this, because this is the best we can do. And I personally, as part of this session, I want to thank Mr. Raju for spending this time in a very short notice, but sharing very candidly. I mean, his own personal sector, his own personal situation. I mean, very few people come on screen and say, I will not pay to people who I have to pay because I need to hold on my cash. I mean, that takes the character and that speaks about the man. But that is the reality. Everybody is looking at that. Recover whatever best you can from the market and stay tight on cash, because you never know how long this is going to last. It may take 3 months, it may take 6 months, it may take even 9 months to the end of this year or the financial year. So we need to be very careful. So thank you, sir. Thank you, Mr. Raju, for being a part of this initiative. And I'm sure the students have gained a lot. I've seen a lot of comments coming in on my private window saying that totally agreed. Great thanks to both of you. Different perspective. And let me also make another confession. Unlike other sessions which I kind of moderate or interact, this has been a great test of my own listening abilities, because you brought in a lot of different things and I need to be alert in connecting the dots, because whatever you said in bits and pieces are very, very valid information. I learned about a couple of authors who I need to follow a little more. I also learned about upskilling and its importance. I heard, because I come from an education background. So personally for me, online content generation was a revelation. So I'm kind of thinking as I'm
only
talking.
thinking aloud. I'm just predicting.
No, but that's the thing, right? Today you have a lot of people who can prescribe things, who can tell you a to-do list saying that do this, do this, do this. But nobody shares candidly the scenario. It's like a blanket which you opened up in front of us to discover along with us. So that is where I appreciate your insights. And I once again thank Mr. Padala and Roots Collegium for actually bringing us on this platform. So let's continue this pursuit of sharing knowledge and learning from one another. Until then, thank you once again, all of you.
Bye, bye, kids. For
Thank you.
listening.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.